digital transformation, including predictive analytics and a new concept called design thinking. All are top of mind for HR today, but what do you need to know now? Welcome to Firing Line. I'm Bill Kudik. Our guest today, Josh Bersin, the most popular commentator about HR, is going to tell us. Ironically, Josh is the epitome of the overwhelmed employee, which he described on his last visit to Firing Line. And the only time he could talk with us was on a Sunday at his home in the Bay Area. Sound familiar? So let's go join him there. Thanks for inviting us into your home, Josh, for the first Firing Line remote interview.
Well, it's my pleasure to have you, Bill. Welcome.
After seeing your office upstairs, I have to think about the digital disruption that we're all undergoing at work. I was wondering what your thoughts were about it.
Well, it's pretty clear to everybody that everything around us is digital now. We're carrying around our lives with us. We're doing videos, we're doing emails, we're doing conference calls. Unfortunately, what our research shows is that work productivity has not grown at the rate the level of digital life has. And so we actually have some work to do in HR, creating digital experiences that are actually productive and helpful at work. And one of the things we're really doing a lot of research on right now is how can the HR function create a digital experience that's really productive, that makes work life better and doesn't just throw more stuff at us, because we pretty much have too much to do already.
Predictive analytics is just shooting up the hype cycle to become, the next big thing in HR. Tell us, how much is hype and how much is hope?
Well, for the last couple of years, obviously I've been following it for a long time. We actually called it stuck in neutral last year. But this year, it is really taking off. The data that I just looked at shows that the adoption of predictive analytics actually doubled around the world this year. And I'm seeing a lot of companies now doing some incredibly powerful things. I was just with a company in San Francisco last week that has a 20-person people analytics team, statisticians and psychologists looking at data about their workforce. So it's becoming a really mainstream part of HR, and it's really starting to have an impact on a lot of decisions.
Without violating any confidences, can you tell us more about this company, how many employees they've got, what they do?
The two biggest issues are retention. Why are people leaving? Where do we have engagement problems? And hiring. What can we do to improve hiring? And so the example of hiring that I want to share that's kind of interesting is the story of a big company down in Silicon Valley that looked at toxic employees who steal or commit crimes at work. What could they do to prevent that? And they found actually through analytics, by looking at data, that there were some specific interview questions that those people exaggerated on in a very predictable way that actually gave them a hint of whether they would turn into these unethical employees. And so they're using that data to really change the way they do hiring and, of course, build a higher quality candidate pool.
That's amazing. And why are they called toxic? Do they have other effects in the company?
Because it turns out, well, that's sort of an HR term, but it turns out that the research also found that they are toxic, and that if you have one of these dishonest employees in your office, people on the same floor are more likely to do the same thing.
It's contagious.
So it's actually contagious, right?
Unbelievable. In your recent talks, Josh, you emphasized design thinking and experienced designer. Tell us what that means.
Well, the way HR kind of created itself over the last 20 or 30 years is by developing programs and processes. So we have a lot of experience creating an onboarding program, a recruiting process, a learning program, a learning process. Well, design thinking is the opposite of that. Design thinking is you take a different process where you study the behavior of people at work in a job, and then you design interventions and programs that improve the work experience for them in that job. You may end up with a process, but it's likely to be much, much simpler and much more relevant to the people in that job. The idea of an experience designer is in the learning industry, for example, we used to have instructional designers, we still do. People that take a problem and then they take it apart and figure out what the learning is required to solve that problem or improve the performance of that job. A learning experience designer goes a little bit further than that and says, what are the experiences and the environment and exposure that I can create for this person that will enable them to learn instead of forcing them to learn. So it's thinking about learning through the context of design, user-centered design, just as you are everything else in HR.
Josh, you're becoming a regular guest just by having new, interesting, and important things to tell us every time we talk. I have no idea when the next time is going to be or where it's going to be, but I'm really looking forward to it.
Thank you, Bill. It's been my pleasure.
Don't miss next month's episode of Firing Line. Just click on the red box to subscribe. You'll get only one email reminder directly from YouTube, I promise, just one, when a new show gets posted. Thank you for watching. I'm Bill Kudik.